Welcome, everyone, to TurinGiants podcast episode 299. I'm joined here with Patrick. Can you believe it? 299 episodes. And I know you as a listener have been a part of many of those.
I've been around for a while. I don't recall which episode. I should go through and figure out when that was. I know it was before Ronaldo, so it's been a while. I'm one of the fanboys that stayed on after listening through that whole debacle, if you
Thank
want to
you.
call it that. Yeah. So I stayed on. But yeah, 299 is a great achievement. For what it's worth, I hope everybody tunes into this one and doesn't just wait for 300. So yeah, good to be back.
Oh, yeah. So Farhad, obviously the man, he's been cooking up a really special 300th episode. So stay tuned for that. I know we've got the end of the season coming up, but we also have our 300th episode. So stay tuned for what he's got going on, bringing him a lot of the OGs of the podcast back for y'all's enjoyment.
As a fan, I'm excited to hear this. Honestly, I want nothing to do with that episode. I want to listen to all the old guys that I grew up listening to.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a great occasion. I'm really excited for that. Today, though, 299 is be focused solely on the match today against Udinese and a look ahead to match day 38. Before we do that, of course, we got to just touch on a few things. We have the summer coming up, the transfer rumors, coaching rumors, management rumors are all starting up. And so just want to quickly shout out our really good friend Rob's new website. Let me make sure I get it right here, juvenewslive.com. So with all of the activity going on over the summer, we know how it is in football land with the transfers and the rumors and so forth. Tune into juvenewslive.com for your up-to-date information there. Of course, from the podcast side, TurinGiants on Instagram, super active with cool content. Obviously love engaging with all of our followers, and TurinGiants.com for the Dele Alpi shirt that I think everybody has except me, Farhad. So maybe I need to get on that. So check those out, and please engage with us. We love getting messages and feedback on it and comments on Instagram. Alrighty, I think I touched on all those. It's been a minute for me on the podcast, so I'm a little rusty. Hopefully,
Yeah,
I
me
didn't
too.
miss anything. But let's jump into the game. That's why we're really here. Udinese, Juventus, a must-win game against an Udinese team that had nothing to play for. They had already secured their spot in Serie next season. A 2-0 victory that might seem comfortable from the story from the scoreline, excuse me, but I was sweating there a little bit until that second goal came in. We had the first goal, 61st minute from Nico, assist from Yildiz, and then the second goal, 88th minute from Dusan, also assisted by Yildiz to secure the win and set us up for a sort of kind of a winner go home 38th match day spot against Venezia, right?
I want to comment just briefly. I know we didn't score in the first half, but strange first half. It was near like 70% possession. There was a ton of corner kicks. I was like, is Thiago Motta like at the helm in the first half? We were in control, seemed like we were probing, but weren't quite dangerous. And I got a little bit of flashback from Thiago Motta, like middle way of the season type deal. Maybe some of the early cup games. I don't know if that was your feeling, and we don't have to talk too much about the first half. It wasn't that interesting, obviously, no goals, but I got a little bit of that feeling and thought, is this going to be one of those games? And the players didn't seem to have a ton of urgency early on, which, as somebody that knows we need to get the result, in my head I'm thinking, let's go. But to your point, the score line was more comfortable than certainly the first half led me to feel like it was going to be for the full 90.
It's interesting you say Thiago Motta and sort of getting that feel, because for the first time under Tudor, and this is where I wanted to start, so it was a perfect segue, is we saw a four-man back. In fact, a return to the Thiago Motta-esque 4-2-3-1 formation. I think part of that was forced with injuries and so forth, but Yes, I know folks, I think specifically Kevin on our podcast in episodes past has been calling for playing a four-man back. What was your reaction to seeing a 4-2-3-1 drawn up on the team sheet today against this Udinese side?
So a little bit, like you said, necessary due to the players at disposal of Igor Tudor. I actually am led to believe the squad fits better this way. I know there was a couple of nice halves maybe under Tudor that you could feel good with the three man in the back. I actually think Vega and Lloyd Kelly, I know it's only Udinese, and we'll talk about their attack a little bit later. I want to mention that, but seemed relatively comfortable in the back, just with them. I did seeing the team sheet. I did expect Locatelli to drop deep. We've talked about this at length under Thiago Motta, how when there's a back four, we know Locatelli is going to come and collect play, and Udinese let him do that. So I thought Chico being out wide again in a natural position suited him well. And let's face it, even though there was no goal in the first half, he was the most dangerous and dynamic. So it was exciting to see that again. Like there was a little bit of electricity when the ball was at his feet, and that's something that I haven't seen from him in a long time. It allowed Yildiz to have a bit more freedom, knowing that on his side was Cambiaso, right? So a bunch of things led me to feel good and warm and fuzzy about the players that they used, despite those that were missing because they were forced to miss. Nevertheless, again, the first half, I had a bit more urgency than I think the team did.
Yeah, you mentioned Udinese's attack in their 3-6-1 formation or whatever it was. There wasn't much desire for them to go forward. So, while I agree with you that our pairing seemed fine, I probably more attribute that to one-way traffic based on Udinese's setup. I mean, do you think that's more Lloyd Kelly and Vega, or more Udinese just kind of planning to park the bus?
So yes, parting to park the bus, but it must be said, like Lloyd Kelly handled everything pretty cleanly in the air. Those are two big dudes, like I felt comfortable even though on and the corner kicks given up, I felt like they were going to be fine. So there is something to be said about in this small number of chances that Udinese had, they were still looking relatively comfortable. So I'm glad that that was not an issue. Let me put it to you that way.
Okay, yeah. To Udinese finished the game with 7 shots, 2 on goal, 1 in each half. Um, the I think the 4-2-3-1 was a really good opportunity, like you said, to see some players unlocked that maybe held back. Chico Conceição, you mentioned, I think deserves a shout for his activity, not only on the wing but also in the center of the park. But and we're going to purposely talk about Yildiz in a minute. But let's talk Nico. Nico Gonzalez, I think, has at times been criticized by a lot of the fans because he'll work really hard and he'll just, whether it be the shot or his final pass, just seems lacking. Um, it felt really good for somebody who has defended him to see him finally get on the score sheet, something he has not done enough of this year. You said in our chat, and I don't know if it was tongue in cheek, Patrick, that Nico's our best attacker. What did you what did you
I've
take
always said
away?
this. Yeah, I've always said
What did you
this.
take
He's easily.
away from his performance?
Uh, I hope he doesn't listen to this, because when that ball came to his foot, I had negative hope. Unfortunately, right? It just seems like him or Coop Miners or Dusan, who, let's face it, he had a nice strike today too. You just don't have the greatest hope when the ball comes to their foot. He, in his role today, the graphic I was watching on Paramount, the graphic showed him to be in like right behind the striker. He spent maybe 30 seconds there, all game. So I don't know if this was just his role to move around, but it was very, very all over the place. I actually thought he helped a lot on defense, albeit Udinese's not very strong attack. There were some positive points, and this maybe is the sum of his season, right? He's worked hard. He's done some decent things, but the finished product wasn't there. So I hope he forgives me if he is listening that I did not have the highest amount of hope when that ball came to him. for his strike, but it was a clean finish. On top of that, he worked really, really hard. If we're going to say man of the match, I don't know that he escalates to that level, but I was pleased finally with the full 90 minutes from him.
I don't think he or anybody can dispute the fact that based on his production at Fiorentina the last several years, that we would have expected more goals and assists coming from him over the course of the season. I don't think that's in dispute. And so what we saw today is something that I would have expected to see a lot more this year, and something that, looking ahead, I hope we see a lot more next season.
Right.
Or his position on this team is going to be in jeopardy. But
Yep.
with that being said, big moment for the team. Got us on the score sheet in the second half. Something we haven't done much under Tudor, right?
At all, right? This was the first game. I'm right. I'm certain that it was the first game where there was a goal in the second half under Tudor. Is this the first game?
I'm not sure. I know that we haven't scored much in the second half under him. I know that in the first several games we hadn't. Regardless, we know that's something that the team has struggled with. We coming out tired and flat, and certainly fading in games. And to see 2 second half goals, I think was huge for this team's maturation under Tudor. So let's actually, since we're talking about goals, let's go from the first to the second. The first being Nico Gonzalez after those two almost fouls, which weren't reviewed at all. Fine, I'll take it and run to a beautiful counterattack. Yield is taking the ball, most of the pitch, drawing defenders, delivering it. Dusan to put it far post. I think as a team we needed that to secure the win. Certainly, I was sweating at that point. What, 88th minute, right? I was sweating a little bit. And I think it was really good for Dusan also to preserve his value, shall we say, as we head into the summer.
I couldn't help thinking. Actually, before I get into the second goal, I want to talk a little bit more about the first one, other than my non-confidence in Nico having the ball at his feet. But I almost didn't see the goal because I was watching the center official, waiting to see what he was doing with his whistle, because it just seems very Juventus-like to get a call against them, unfortunately, there. And I more than half expected that to be the case. And then it was almost like a makeup no call for the other team, for Udinese. And I'm like, is something going to amount to this? And a little square ball from Yildiz, who I thought played a perfectly weighted pass for Nico to hit it one time. He did not, hence my reservations about this first touch, and he put it in. So despite that one, second goal, really clean, something I hoped to see more of. And even the commentary said from Juventus number 10 to their number 9, they wanted to see more of this season. That could not be more spot on. Had those roles been reversed and Dusan was the one carrying the ball, I regret to think that would not have been a goal, right? I mean, just based on the way it was a clean finish, no doubt he needed it. The team needed it, perhaps for his resale value. But I couldn't help but thinking if the roles were reversed, that would not have been the same thing.
I think not going down that road, because it's pure speculation. I want to reflect on our season. We've seen a lot of fast break opportunities that have failed because of a lack of cohesion between players. And I think, sometimes you watch a team, like Empoli or Parma or Como, execute these counterattacks with such venom, and I'm like, why can't we do that? Whenever we get a counterattack, you get down the pitch and the final ball is just lacking. It's too heavy, it's too short, the shot just goes wide. And so it was really satisfying, again, within the context of such an important game, to see us execute such a well-worked counterattack. And I think this is the perfect opportunity to talk about the linchpin in both goals, as well as what was lacking in our last few games. And that was the presence of Yildiz. Missing 2 very important games because of suspension. I think there was clearly something lacking in the link-up play and the attacking bite of our team in those 2 important games. Well, he comes back into the side from suspension, and I'm just super impressed with how involved he is in the passing game. I mean, he was second on our team in touches with 77, 86% passing, 43 of 50, which is just an enormous amount of involvement for a guy playing in sort of the 10-ish or attacking midfield position. And I think ultimately the stats don't lie. We leave the game with Keenan Yildiz with 2 assists. Is he
Fundamentally,
your man of the match?
I would say yes. I'm going to give a silver ball, and I'm going to talk briefly about, again, Kelly and Vega. And I know Farhad sent a message and said he wanted to call out Costa, who is just a runner, man. I don't know if it was the Portuguese. By the way, 3 Portuguese starters is crazy on a Juventus team. Did you think about that at all? 3 Portuguese starters today?
I didn't think about. I mean, I acknowledged it, but I think I don't know in the multinationalism of football, that wouldn't necessarily doesn't surprise me.
Sure.
Um, and I just think the only thing that crossed my mind was, hey, maybe they'll have better cohesion as they play together.
All kind of on the same side of the pitch. But anyway, yeah. So Farhad, quick shout out to Farhad again. Um, yeah, Costa played well as sort of my bronze ball. My silver ball was Kelly. Just seemed really composed. But I would say man of the match was Yildiz. Although I struggle naming a man of the match because a lot of players had decent moments, and this goes back to the argument of, is it Juventus actually playing really well, or Udinese not really offering too much? But McKennie, really direct in the first half, played a couple of balls through to Colomwani. Without Taram, that needed to be done by somebody, right? And obviously Locatelli, who was clinical again yet today. So tough to really name the man of the match. And I don't know if you have Fought Mob up. I'm not sure how much I subscribe to those anyway, but I would suspect a lot of players got a fair rating today. But for me, just anecdotally watching, I think Yildiz, even though he wasn't terribly like involved early, he made the stuff count. And that when he got the ball, and in the second half, certainly he was very clinical, very instrumental, and exactly right. He was the linchpin that was missing the last 2 games. For a youngster, he just has so much poise, and you can just it radiates when he's on the pitch.
Okay, so we'll get you give the golden ball to Keenan. You give who's the silver ball go to?
Silver, I'm gonna, as a defensive guy, silver ball to Lloyd Kelly, which I might get chastised on social media, but the guy played well today. It was composed.
And your bronze ball was to Costa. Okay, I think when we talked about a couple of these guys, I think I'm going to go a different path. I'm going
Sure.
to give my silver ball to Chico Conceição. I think he was the only one who was really making a difference in the first half against a team you knew was going to be more defensive. A guy who can beat men and one-on-one and cause chaos is so rare in today's age of football, where a lot of it is focused on passing and movement. And I think his play and dynamic movement and dribbling ability was put on display today. And I think it's the type of player you love to have against teams that sit deep. And for
Can I interject for a quick minute here on Chico? Could you not
yeah,
help
go
but
ahead.
think that this performance was bittersweet? I don't know that this performance is going to change anything about his long-term stay in Turin. In the back of my head, I just felt like this might have been his last. If this was his last give, right, to this club, I think it was well worth it, even though he wasn't on the score sheet or anything. It was the performance that I've wanted to see more of from him throughout the year. But maybe you have different thoughts, and maybe the management of Juve have different thoughts. I just don't know if this is going to be his. If this is his swan song, so be it. And I was happy with the performance today.
I think the most important thing for me at this stage, I mean, we are at second to last game,
Right.
only competition, got to get top 4. The primary focus was not over contextualizing. We do that a lot over the season as you look ahead and you're in multiple competitions. But for me today, it was blinders on, get the win. And so I didn't worry about bittersweetness. Let's worry about that after we're top 4 secured
Good
next
point.
next
Good
week,
point.
right? So I didn't think too deeply into it. I wanted to see Juventus get the win and move on to the next. And so that was really the focus for me today when I looked at his play. And I think the next player, my bronze ball, I give to Locatelli. He so much this season has been sort of the catalyst for our play, the engine, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Today, again, I mean, passing stats. Let me get them here. 93 touches, 90% passing accuracy with 74 passes, 19 passes into the final third, 8 of 13 for long range passing accuracy. He's still, when you're going to go against an opponent that's going to sit deep, you need people who can distribute effectively. His long balls and his cutting passes in order to create disruption in Udinese's defensive structure was key for much of the game to give us chances and to recycle possession. And so I want to shout out both Chico and Locatelli.
Sure.
My man of the match has to be Yildiz with the involvement and the 2 assists, and I don't think there's too many people who are going to dispute that. But I think when it comes down to winning these games, it comes down to moments. Yildiz created those moments, the moments that we were unfortunately lacking at times in the last 2. So,
Right.
I think we've covered some good players. Is there anyone else you want to shout out? Not meant a key player, but somebody who shined that we haven't shined a light on.
Yeah, maybe more of a question here. So this podcast has rightly so been on the Thuram Locatelli partnership since before Christmas. I think no matter which manager is deploying these guys, I feel like that was the best pairing. Obviously, Thuram, the last number of games has really been a spark plug. When, let's face it, Juventus haven't played at their best. He's been punching above his weight and the team's weight. And I think that'll be the long-term pair. Without him today, how did you feel like McKennie will do? There's some contractual things going on with him. I know some people are frustrated with his lack of goal involvement this season. Thoughts on his play today, given the fact that he's filling pretty large role left open by Thuram's not inaction today for the game. Yeah.
I think McKennie played exactly what we needed what we needed from him today. He was very active. He dropping deep where need be. He was facilitating possession quickly, not taking too many touches, which I thought was really good. And then he was getting in advanced positions to try to support the attack. I think it was in a lot of ways emblematic of his role on the team. Is sort of this person who you can plug into any role to effectively fill a gap. He was not at all game breaking in the way that Thuram can be, but he didn't make mistakes against an Udinese side that was largely resigned to sit deep. He had good off the ball movement, and until he had to be subbed off due to injury, he had his normal level of physicality and work rate that makes him, such a good fit to fit any position. So I was happy with the performance, but it didn't strike me as one that was particularly exceptional. I think you need, though, players like him to around key players like Yildiz in order to be successful. So I don't want to take, have that comment necessarily take anything away from him. You don't need everyone. You can't have everyone be, superstars.
Right. Good point.
So he did his job today.
Last question I have for you regarding players, unless you have more. So Dusan on the score sheet off the bench, as compared to Randall Colomwani, who worked well. I had a chuckle. There was an overlap, and Locatelli in the second half was playing like the 9 and pressuring up top. And then there was a kind of a long ball played, and Randall Colomwani is tracking back and playing next to Costa. And I'm like, what is going on here? So he didn't score today. I think he has some frustrations with the team not playing him in. There's a couple of long balls or through balls that they tried to do today But if you watch the game, just and watch his movement, there are aspects when he can tell the defense is playing a high line, which didn't happen too often, and he wanted to break that with the ball over the top. And for whatever reason, not all of the midfielders, not all of the players look for that. So anyway, I want to not shout out Kolomwani, but just talk that he does work, and he wasn't on the score sheet like Dusan was, but there was effort there today, and I'm perplexed as to what his future might be in black and white. But a solid performance today, and by solid, I don't mean that he was, again, like McKennie. Maybe he didn't do anything wrong, but he worked hard, and needing 3 points, that's what you require from everybody today.
There was a concerted effort in the first half to try long balls. You saw that from defense. You saw that from Locatelli. One of them led to the sort of one-on-one with the keeper at about the 10-minute mark that Kolomani unfortunately could not secure.
Great save. As a keeper, that's a great save.
You saw also a lot of quick give-and-go type passing at the top of the box that he was able to participate in, both that over-the-top speed and those types of quick passes in tight spaces at the top of the box are not really Duchan's specialty or within his skill set. I think you saw the team play around a striker that has a more expansive skill set for much of the game. And I think that contributed positively to our gameplay. I would have loved for us to score earlier. We had the chances where we might be having a different conversation today about Random Kolomwani's influence. Maybe Locatelli scoring that 8-minute shot that Chico delivered into him. So we might have been having a conversation where Kolomwani or Chico got assists or goals because of those types of plays. Right. But we're not. I think from an overall gameplay standpoint, it was positive. Ultimately, at this stage of the season, though, we want to see him kind of bury some of those chances. Duchan, to his credit, might have a more limited skill set. He came in got one chance and he buried it. And that again, with blinders on, looking at the importance of this game on our season was huge to give us that sigh of relief. Considering how often we've been burned with late.
I almost fell to my knees I almost fell to my knees in absolute shock and awe at that moment, thinking, wow, 2-0. This must be the sun is shining in Turin today.
Well, speaking of shining suns, or not, I guess, how do you feel about the debut of the new jersey?
I'm always one for the controversial opinion. Of course, when you see them just hanging on a hanger in a Juventus store, an Adidas store, it's easy to pick and choose. So I'm not the Juve purist as some who might listen to the podcast are, but I do appreciate a nice black and white striped uniformed kit. However, what I'm getting to this, Zach, is it doesn't look as bad on the players. It's a bit obnoxious with the Visit Detroit, and I know, unfortunately, you're the Detroit guy living in Houston.
Unfortunately, what does unfortunately mean?
Coming from the Green Bay guy, right? So, but unpopular opinion, perhaps it doesn't look awful on the field. However, I want to just plug this. Whatever those sideline uniforms are, the warm-ups. those were I don't think that one's controversial. Those got to go, man.
Those were shocking. When they went over, I think we were looking at like Douglas Luiz and Duchan sitting next to each other. What are they wearing? I have to agree though about the jersey. It looked much better on the player than I imagined. I still don't like the sort of barcode asymmetry of the black lines. And maybe the two sponsors looked better, next to Udinese, where they have an entire sentence on the front of their jersey.
Right.
And so maybe in contrast, it looked okay. But yeah, I was surprised that they didn't look nearly as bad as some like the stills that you've seen like online, or some of the pictures that you get from friends.
Something about Jeep makes it feel like it's right. I know the speculations on how much the amount might be over the course of the next few years and whatever with sponsorship money. So I think there's some protestations on that. Nevertheless, Jeep feels right. I'm fine with it. I didn't mind the Save the Children logo, of course, for what that stood for, but nice to have a little bit of extra revenue coming in.
Now, I absolutely prefer the Save the Children appearance on the jersey. I think it looked better, yeah, as well as the cause. Obviously, a football team requires money to run, so we'll take that and run. I think I transitioned to the jerseys because I wanted to mention it, but I think we've covered everything on today's game. Obviously, an important win. We touched on a lot of the players. Anything else that you want to touch on, or should we move ahead to the table and next week?
I think yeah, let's do that because the only other thing I really want to mention is the fact that all of these teams are playing at this time slot. It, it made for some insane finishes to the game. We were talking in our group chat about it. So if you want to touch on that, I'd be happy to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with is from the implications, right? You got the Juventus game on this screen. On the other one, you've got sort of the refreshing match day list. And then you see, Fiorentina Bologna was a high scoring game. Lazio Inter had direct implications on us.
Red cards.
The red card in the the 21st minute in the Milan Roma game. So I guess the question, and you want to talk about it, I'll just say, I won't give a question. I'll give you my opinion. You tell me how you feel. But I
Sure.
love the fact, considering how close the races are for the Scudetto, for top four, and for relegation, I loved having all of those matches at the same time. Like the normally do during match day 38 in match day 37. It got me. It was my anxiety was much higher, but also my excitement too. I loved it. What was your take?
There's probably a revenue sacrifice a little bit from the networks for this, right? Because they kind of cannibalize each other with
Yep.
the time slots. However, as a fan's perspective, it's awesome. The commentary even for the Juve game was saying, "Oh, they're refreshing." I'm sorry, not the Juve game, the Inter and they're just you're watching this one and refreshing the other one, like you said, live timed in the stadiums. I think that's so cool. And it reminds me, do you remember that picture a number of years ago? It was, I think, during the Pirlo season where you got Ronaldo and all those guys on the bench, like looking at their phones
Yeah,
and not even
huddled
watch.
around the phone.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I know that was during match day 38, but just you can cut the anticipation with a knife. And so I just think it makes for a really exciting match week. I love it. It really brings the energy. I'm excited for next week. Hopefully, Juventus obviously get a win. That's what we're hoping for. But as far as the other games are concerned, Zach, that's so fun. Just with the tension and the anxiety, it's so cool.
Alrighty, so let's talk about it. Now that match day 37 is done, let's look at 38. There's three races. We'll just mention the relegation in the Scudetto race, so that we can focus on the one that Juventus is involved in. Napoli and Inter both drew today. So you're sitting on 79 points for Napoli, 78 points for Inter. That one, of course, is going to go down to the wire. It's already down to the wire for relegation. Okay, you realistically have five teams. Well, I guess Mullins is already relegated, so four teams
Yep.
for the last two spots. You have Empoli and Venezia at 31 and 29 points, respectively, and 18 and 19, with Parma and Lecce 33, 31, just above them. This is really important to us, and we'll get to that in just a second. The fight for fourth place, Juventus at 67 points, Roma at 66 points, Lazio at 65. As we've mentioned, it's win and we're top four. Why the relegation battle is so important is that Juventus plays Venezia, who got blown out today. Venezia is going to be at home and has to win to have a chance to stay in Serie A. Meanwhile, Roma, the closest team to us, is playing Torino, who has nothing to play for. They're solidified in either 11th or 12th place. And so it's one of these types of games where you look at Venezia getting blown out today against Cagliari, and you're like, that should be easy. One, we've been burned before, right, Patrick? And two,
Yep.
you never, ever, ever count out a relegation team fighting for survival, right?
This is one of those games. I coach soccer here in the States. This is one of those games where you look at your players and say, "We need that early goal to set the tone." I don't want to be hoping and praying in the 75th minute for the last minute goal, because that's not what Juventus has been recently, albeit today with the late goal. But I'm begging on my knees for like an early 10, 15, even 20-minute goal. Gather yourself at halftime and then go and get another one. Like I just feel like that has to be the plan of attack, because like I said, you just can't hope and pray at the last minute you'll get a lucky one. Juventus aren't good from set pieces this year. They're not good from corners this
Horrible,
year. So
horrible.
that's not something you can bank on. When you've had guys in the past like Chiellini, Bonucci, like those guys were titans in the box around corner kicks, and you felt like late you could get one of those. I don't have that feeling this year, despite how Lloyd Kelly maybe had played today. Like that's not something that I feel I'm gonna bet all my winnings on. So I'm nervous, certainly, because of the win and in is nice to control your own destiny, but I'm nervous yet.
On the negative side, rewinding quite some time, our first match against Venezia at home was a 2-2 draw that required a 95th minute equalizer from Dushan.
I'm glad you called
Um,
this out. Yep.
so this is a team that went away, the Venezia team that went away to Torino and largely it pretty much should have won that game. So they can absolutely play with the big boys. On the positive side, from a Juventus perspective, Venezia has to win, and so they are going to have to attack,
Right.
which should play perfectly into our style of play, to a Tudor style of play, to allow our physicality to win balls back and then take advantage of space that will exist in between the lines against a Venezia team that's going to be fighting, that's going to be looking to go forward. So, I mean, I think everyone listening, Juventus fans around the world, will be watching that game closely. I think it's going to be a situation where I'm less concerned about the early goal because Venezia has to win just like we do. I think
Okay.
we can be a little bit more patient and say they have to come to us. That's going to open them up. And I'll take our players in open space, kind of like we saw at times today, cutting the lines and creating havoc for teams. I'll pick our side in a game like that where we've excelled all year, actually, in winning the ball and then utilizing space from our opponents. I'll take that to create chances, and then it's all going to come down to players in those moments capitalizing and scoring. Having Yildiz back, having a guy like Kolomwani who can break lines with his speed, but also has good touch, I think will be the key type of players that will be
Do
keys
you
to our victory next week.
think Thuram is a lock in this type of style?
I think, interestingly enough, I think I was thinking both Thuram, and assuming McKennie's knock isn't a big deal, both Thuram and McKennie actually work really well in these types of games. There's going to be a lot of running. There's going to be a lot of space. Guys with Thuram's dribbling ability, guys with McKennie's physicality and work rate are crucial to make sure that you don't get exposed. First and foremost, if you can,
Sure.
if you cough up the ball and attack, but also ensure that the opposing team is always feeling the pressure and the threat of your attack. Um, the concern is would you start both of them? And I'm not sure. I'm not sure, depending on who's coming back, whether that would be the case. But having guys with their types of characteristics in a game like this against an opponent like Venezia, where pound for pound you have an advantage, in players, I think works well in our favor, despite it being an away game. And like I said, I'm going back to being more composed. You don't have to
Sure.
force it, because in a game like that, I think when you force it and try too hard, you're going to just the tendency is to also expose yourself, and I don't think we need to. I think we can be very composed and relaxed in this game and not have to stress too much. I do think, and you've touched on this, that urgency, though, there will be a line. If it is 0-0, there will be a line where we have to show urgency. And truth be told, Patrick, I mean, have you, anytime in the last several months, have you really seen us demonstrate periods of urgency in games? I think that's something we've been lacking.
True. In the Tudor reign, every game is kind of sort of felt like a final in some aspects, right? So I would assume, I don't have a curtain into what their training looks like, but I would assume that he preaches urgency in training. That has to be a must. So whether they translate that to the field is something that I'm not sure of. I haven't seen it necessarily, but you have to think that that's discussed thoroughly in training.
I mean, discussed, but my point is I haven't seen it on the pitch. I mean, every game since February, maybe even before, has been a must win. Right? We were in control of our destiny at so many times to only then cough it up. I haven't, under either coach, seen us play with urgency in key moments. I don't know if it's fitness, which we've talked about on this podcast, which I certainly think is a component of it. But I also don't know if whether this relatively young crop of players knows how to ratchet up that intensity at the end of the game. And so, as much as I'm saying, I think you can go in with a composed mindset, there might be a time where they need to kick into that extra gear. And I'm concerned, preach it or not, they have that. I'm concerned that they haven't been able to demonstrate that on the pitch. And so, if it is that 80th minute where it's 0-0 or something, I am begging to be proven wrong on this point, because I'll be really concerned that we might not have the ability to close it.
Despite all of that, with the result today, I'm really anxious. I kind of want to play the game right now. Like it finally feels like the team had a fairly good half, right? And being that it was the second half, it's fun to close a game on top, right? Where you're in the driver's seat. They didn't stop, right? They went for the second goal. I just, in my opinion, it's nice to have some momentum to close a game sometimes instead of to start a game. I would like the Venezia game to be the opposite, right? I want that early goal, but I kind of just want to play the game now with the momentum that Juventus finished with today. So looking forward to it. I'm going to be on the edge of my seat no matter what. Hey, this is why we have a podcast, right? For all these games coming down to the wire. This is it, right?
It's certainly exciting. I think, though, I don't want to overstate the importance of today's win in terms of like a momentum thing, because the win is obviously important. But when you say rolling it into the Venezia game, we were playing an Udinese team that had nothing to play for. Certainly, they go out there. I mean, it's not like the players were like phoning it in. But there is definitely a different motivating factor from a Juventus standpoint where you have to win. And from the Udinese's perspective, they didn't. Venezia?
There's pride, though. I mean, there's pride.
I mean,
You
certainly
saw it on
there's
the
pride.
second goal, right? You saw them hanging their heads, and there's pride there.
But it's a different animal to on the last match day go in against a team like Roma to Torino that has nothing to play for versus Juventus to Venezia, where their entire survival, some of these players, their contract, certainly the amount on their contract, that's all at stake based on the result of that game. Now, you could say that was true today as well for Venezia, and they got blown out, which is crazy. But still, you can never count out. And so I think I don't disagree. I'm never going to argue about the importance of today's game. It was hugely important, but the nature of the competition and the context of that is going to be very different next week,
Sure.
from our opponent's standpoint. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. And they're going to be at home. They're going to probably come out with a level of aggression to try to get that first goal themselves, to then park the bus to the rest of the game, if I were to guess.
Sure.
And so I think both of us are really curious, and I think this is the perfect type of thing for listeners to engage with us on Instagram on what kind of match and what kind of style you want to see us play in this sort of key game against an opponent fighting for survival, because we have a couple of different opinions. I know other folks in our TurinGiants chat do as well. So hit us up on Instagram, on the many posts that inevitably will come out of this podcast as well as this week, on your thoughts, opinions on what you expect to see and what you want to see from a gameplay style from Juventus against Venezia. I think, though, looking at the time and looking at my outline, I think we've touched it all, Patrick. What do you think? Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. Glad to be back. As we summarized in the beginning, as I mentioned, I hope everyone tunes into this being the eve of episode 300 and right before the end of the season. This is what it's all about for both the Juventus team and our podcast, right? This is what it's all about. So happy to be back. Great talk today, Zach. It's kind of nice having a little double duo dynamic today.
Yeah, I think it's easier for me, not hosting that often. Not hosting that often. I can just show up and have a conversation.
Yeah, right.
But right. I think I actually really appreciate you reiterating it, everybody. 300th episode, Farhad's planning something special. Of course, we've got the last game of the season, which we've talked a lot about. We will bring you our post-game thoughts, and inevitably after that have an episode kind of debriefing the season, and look to do some of those in a live format so that y'all can be included. We love doing those live sessions, so stay tuned. All of our sort of episodes, certainly soliciting questions and the like, all done through Instagram at TurinGiants. So please, if you have not followed us, do so and stay tuned there. But with that, I really appreciate all of your time. It's because of y'all, the listeners, that we do this and we enjoy it so much. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.
In the middle of a railroad track, looked around and I knew there was no turning back. My mind raced and I thought, what could I do? And I knew there was no help from you. Sound of the drums beating my heart. The thunder of guns tore me apart. You've been thunderstruck.